Good morning, students. So now let's move to the third video of this lesson. A synopsis: the Swiss family Robinson. Yesterday we had seen about that the William and his family landed successfully on the island, and they set up a tent, and often the floor with almost of grass they cut and spread to serve as their beds. And they came to a grove of trees. On tree grew there what looked like gourds on its trunk. The father told Fritz the gourds would make excellent bowls and spoons, and they cut them into the various utensils. Now let's move to the next para. After some days, Elizabeth informed William that she wanted the family to move to a safer places. Their current camp was not only exposed but also very dry and hot. So where they set up their tent, it was not safer places as good as they want, and that is why the Elizabeth informed William to move to a safer places. Their current camp was not only exposed but also very dry and hot, because that place was not in a favorable condition, if not in a favorable condition. And so Elizabeth informed William to move to a safer places, because not only exposed but also very dry and hot. Not only but also, if they built a house in one of the large trees, they would be safe from jackals, because they want to protect from the wild animals, and so they wanted to build a house up in one of the large trees, because it would be safe. It would be safe from jackals, other animals, other wild animals. She described a perfect tree for the project. So they want to build their house, their tent on a large tree, because I think might have some wild animals harm to them. The branches were nearly 40 feet in diameter. The branches were very long and extended straight out of the trunk, making them perfect platforms for structure. So what they want to structure their house, so it was a perfect tree, and that trunk was nearly 40 feet in diameter, and the branches were very long and extended straight out from the trunk, and making them perfect platforms for structure. Later, when they determining the height of the lowest branches, the father taught the boys geometry and how to use the triangles to measure a big objects. So father also taught that the mathematics, the triangles and the the other figures, other to measure the branches, lowest branches, because they wanted to make a tent, and how to use triangles to measure big objects. Who taught? The William taught to their children about the geometry. He measured a defined distance from the trunk. Then he calculated angles using the several measured rods, determining that the lowest branch was 30 feet from the ground. 30 feet. How much the distance from the ground of the branches? The 30 feet from the ground. So means their children learn about the mathematics, how to measure the distance. And who taught? William taught to their children. The men knotted a rope at certain intervals and attached the pieces of a bamboo in each knot. And so they want to climb up their house, their tent, and that is why they made the ladder from the rope. And at a particular level or particular intervals, they made the knots to the rope, because they want to climb up the tree. Thus they created their ladder. Father returned to the beach and collected the driftwood, thinking it would be perfect to build a sledge on runners rather than the wheels. Later they used it to transport materials. So father created a ladder from the rope, and so because they wanted to climb up the now and then to the house which was making on the tree. Thinking it would be a perfect to build a sledge in ordinance, there rather than wheels later they used to transport materials. And so father collected driftwood. Driftwood means that is the piece of wood which can float on the water. And so he collected. He was what was he thinking to would be a perfect to build a sledge. Sledge means on a runners rather than runners means the strips on which something slides. Rather than wheels, later they used to transport materials. Meanwhile, the Elizabeth announced that the garden she had been tending was producing healthy plants. So meanwhile means during this period, the Elizabeth wanted to create such a nice garden, wonderful garden, and she wanted to tend that the all plants, which plants were planting by the Elizabeth. So she want to tend, mean to care of these plants in her garden. Corn, melons, pumpkins, and cucumber were already growing. Already growing. So in her garden, she wanted to plant the melons, pumpkins, and cucumber. The next day, only the father and the kids traveled to the woods, exploring and finding such exotic plants as one the waxy fruit, from which candles could be made. Fritz discovered a tree exuding a rubbery sap, from which his father claimed that they could make the woods. The next day, only the father and Fritz, both of them traveled to the woods. Woods means the jungle, the forest. They traveled through the woods, exploring and finding such exotic plants, exotic plants from foreigners, as one with waxy fruits. Waxy means just like the sticky fruit, from which candles could be made. So they wanted to make the candles, and there was a waxy fruit, the sticky fruit, and they wanted to make the candles from this fruit. Fritz discovered a tree exuding a rubbery sap, from which his father claimed that they could make the boots. So these things were collected by the William and his son, which were helpful for them. Thinking ahead of the next winter, father decided to create a place safe from the elements, a strong storage spot to protect themselves and their belongings. Now, thinking ahead of the next winter, father decided to create a place safe from the elements, a strong storage spot to protect themselves and their belongings. Fritz came up with the idea of a cave. Not finding one, they thought of carving out their own cave in the rock, abutting then camping site on the smooth face of the trap, and father marked the dimension for an opening, and they picked away at the hard surface with the excess chisels, hammers, and shovels. Over the next several days, the family cut windows in the rocks to allow for the cross currents of air and for sunlight to enter the cave. And when they had finished, they had 4 rooms complete with a fireplace, and they now had a new winter home. So they made the winter home. It was a favorable for them, because it will be protected from the wind, from the cold, and such type of the house was made by this family, Williams and his sons. Because of the low light, the cave house they had built felt oppressive. To remedy this, father and Jack rigged up a new light, and they found a bamboo pole that would reach from the floor to the ceiling. Then after screwing it, Jack climbed to the top of the pole and hung a large oil lamp that they had rescued from the ship. And that's why, so this was the house which was made by this family, and it was favorable for such a condition. And so because it was a cave, it was a dark, in darkness in this cave, and such type of this house was made by this family. And so let's see, let us stop here, and next we will continue in the next video.